The cries of the enslaved did not go unheard. Though their chains were heavy and their days were long, hope, quiet and unseen, was already moving among them. The Pharaoh of Egypt, fearful of the growing strength of the Hebrew people, had issued a cruel command. Every newborn Hebrew boy was to be cast into the river Nile. It was a decree meant to erase a future. But fear does not always silence courage. Among the Hebrews lived a woman who refused to surrender her child to death. When her son was born, she hid him, day after day, night after night, until hiding was no longer possible. His cries grew louder, his life more fragile. And so, with trembling hands and a faithful heart, she placed her baby into a small basket, sealing it carefully, and set it gently upon the waters of the Nile. She did not abandon him. She entrusted him. The river that was meant to destroy Hebrew children became the path of salvation for one. Watched from a distance by his sister, the basket drifted through reeds and shadows until it was discovered by none other than Pharaoh's own daughter. When she opened it and saw the crying child, something within her changed. She knew who he was. And still, she chose compassion. The child was taken into the palace, raised as royalty, educated in the ways of Egypt, and given a name that would echo through history: Moses, drawn out of the water. Yet though Moses wore Egyptian garments and walked marble halls, his heart was never fully at rest. Somewhere deep within him stirred a question he could not silence. Who am I? Years passed. Moses grew strong, learned, respected. But one day, he saw an Egyptian overseer beating a Hebrew slave, one of his own people. Rage, long buried, rose within him. In a moment that would change everything, Moses struck the Egyptian and killed him. The palace that once protected him now hunted him. Moses fled into the wilderness, trading silk for sand, power for solitude. There, in the land of Midian, he became a shepherd, guiding sheep through barren terrain, living a quiet life far from the cries of Egypt. It seemed as though the story had ended. But this was not the end. One ordinary day, while tending his flock near a mountain, Moses noticed something strange: a bush engulfed in flames, yet not consumed. Drawn closer, he heard a voice, holy, commanding, alive. Moses, Moses. The ground beneath him was no longer ordinary ground. The voice spoke of suffering, of slavery, of promises made long before Moses was born. The God of his ancestors had seen the affliction of his people, and had chosen Moses to lead them out, not as a prince, not as a warrior, but as a servant. Moses resisted. He doubted. He questioned his worth, his speech, his strength. But the call remained. I will be with you. With those words, destiny took hold. Moses returned to Egypt, not in chains, but with purpose. He stood before Pharaoh, not as a son of the palace, but as a messenger of justice. Again and again he spoke the same words: let my people go. Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Power does not loosen its grip easily. And so the land of Egypt began to tremble. Water turned to blood. Darkness swallowed the sun. The might of Egypt was challenged, not by armies, but by obedience and faith. Still, Pharaoh refused, until the night when sorrow passed through every Egyptian home, and the weight of resistance became unbearable. At last, the command was given. Go. The people who had lived in chains for generations gathered what little they had and stepped into the unknown. They left Egypt not as slaves fleeing in fear, but as a people walking toward promise. Ahead of them lay wilderness, uncertainty, and trials yet untold. But behind them, bondage was broken. And above them, unseen yet unwavering, was the God who had never forgotten them.